Welcome to the Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richeimer. We are so privileged to have Rabbi Zev Leff with us today. I'm telling you, you're in for a big treat. And we, as you know, we go right in deep very quickly. So I'm going to ask you the very first question. What is the most important factor, Rabbi, for Shalom Bayis?
Okay, before I can answer that question, I have to define what Shalom Bayis is. Now, many people think that Shalom Bayis is a home where no one ever raises their voice, where there is never any arguments, and everything is peaceful, quiet, and serene. That does not describe Shalom Bayis. That describes a cemetery. The Shalom Bayis can be a home where there is arguments, disagreements, even people raising their voice. You know that that may describe your home. You may think that the first definition of Shalom Bayis, peace, serenity, and quiet, is your neighbor's home, but that can only be in the winter when the windows are closed. Because in the summer, you know it's not your neighbor either. So what is Shalom Bayis? If it can include arguments and even raising of the voices? The answer is the word shalom does not really mean peace. The word shalom means perfection, shlemus. Perfection, only God is perfect. Everything else in this creation is imperfect. And in order to reach perfection, needs to have a group effort of many things working together towards the same goal. And that's what shalom is. God makes shalom, perfection, by bringing even opposites together. Heaven, shamayim, is made from fire and water working together. Can't get more opposites than that. When they work together, you have heaven. When they don't work together, you have the opposite. So Shalom Bayis means the perfection of the home by everybody pitching in and doing their portion according to their tafkid, their unique part in building a home. A father has his role to play. A mother has her role to play. There's interaction between the father and the mother as a husband and a wife. And then there's interaction between children and parents. Children have their responsibilities and their benefits, and parents have their responsibilities toward their children and the benefits they have from their children. And when everybody works and fulfills their role properly for the betterment of the entire family, that is Shalom Bayis. Now, there can be disagreements, but everybody has one goal. What is best for everyone? Now, I can think that what's best for everyone is X, and you can think what's best for everyone is Y, and we can argue it out. But we're not arguing what's best for me, but what's best for all of us. And then we can come to a conclusion of what really is best for all of us, maybe X, maybe Y, or maybe some kind of compromise between X and Y. And when that is the motivation of the home, everybody is fulfilling their role, contributing their unique role for the betterment of everyone, not just for their own betterment, then there's shlemus, then there's perfection, and that's what Shalom Bayis really means.
It's very powerful, but I had a question for you because I just got a question that the question was, Leah, I know what I should do, and it's what Rabbi just said. He said, I have so many resentments against my husband for not putting his share, his effort in. How does Rabbi think a woman, I think we all have little.
So there are various ways of correcting situations that are negative, like what you just described. One of them is to sit down and vocalize what the problem is and see what the response is from the other side, and see if together you can work out how to solve that problem, how to take away that negativity. Sometimes that doesn't work. If you sit down together, you're just going to make more problems. So maybe you need to go to a Rav, to a counselor, to someone who can mediate or and give a Torah direction to what the solution has to be, or what the proper mindset has to be. If that's what's necessary, then as long as both of you are interested in solving the problem and reducing the friction, then there's always a way of solving it. If either one is not interested, but just wants to get their own way, then that is perhaps the biggest obstacle to Shalom Bayis, where people are selfish meaning that they're only concerned about themselves and want to get whatever they can get. It's better for them. Then there's a really big problem of Shalom Bayis. When people are willing to look at the bigger picture and realize what's better for them sometimes is what's better for everyone, then even though specifically they're not going to get their way, right, or get their needs taken care of, but in the bigger picture, this is what really is going to make the family a better functioning family. And in the end, everyone gains from that. Until a person has that mindset, the Shalom Bayis is going to be very difficult.
This trans shift, in today's culture where, we're all like Amazon, I need this now. It's a whole selfish, our environment is one of very selfishness. So does Rabbi have advice on how to, what you're saying sounds very promising. Like, yes, maybe I would be willing to give up a little selfishness if I got something in the end, but how would, does Rabbi have some advice on how to grow a person, grow oneself?
Yeah, I think like in everything, right? You have to learn first. A lot of things depend on learning and understanding what's proper. I may not be doing it, but at least I know what the goal is and what's really proper. Somebody who's committed to a Torah lifestyle has to know what a Torah lifestyle is, right? You can't be committed to something you have no idea what it is. So the more a person learns, start by learning. There's so many books on Shalom Bayis. Some of them, I think that the only value they have is that if you have a little child who doesn't reach the table level, you can put it under them and raise them up. Right? Some of those books, that's the only value they have. But there are many good books, Torah books on Shalom Bayis, and get one and read it, learn it. That's the first step. Now you have an idea of what the goal is, but you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, that's very nice in the book, but that's not me. Right? How do I get to fulfill what it says in the book? So like I've said many times, a person has to have a ladder. The ladder has to have its head in the heavens, like Yaakov Avinu's ladder. And my goals are in the heavens. I have tremendous goals. I really want to reach a level of Shalom Bayis that is the ideal, that's represented in what I learned. But I can't stand on the ground and say, well, I wish I was up there. You have to do something. You don't do something, you'll never get to the top of the ladder. You're not going to sit at the bottom of the ladder and say, I wish I was on the top. There's a story that's told that illustrates this. There was a person who wanted to be a multimillionaire. He dreamt of being a multimillionaire and using his money only for good things. And he realized the only way, naturally, he could ever become a multimillionaire is if he won the lottery. So he used to pray every day, 3 times a day, God, please let me win the lottery. And I promise you, if I win the lottery and I become a multimillionaire, I will use my money only for good things. And he begged and he cried at the end of his Shemona Esrei 3 times a day, God, please let me win the lottery. After 20 years of this, The angels came to God and said, we can't take this anymore. Every day this guy pleads and cries, let me win the lottery. You know, he sounds sincere, God. What would be so terrible if you let him win the lottery? And the Rebbeinu Shalom said, I'd love to let him win the lottery. He never bought a ticket. So you can want and want
Hello.
and want, but if you don't buy the ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. So you have to have this goal in the heavens that I really want to have the perfect marriage, the perfect family, and I want to contribute my part without being selfish. That's my goal. Okay, now buy the ticket. You have a ladder. Climb rung number one. Rung number one, I know that there's something that I do every week or every day and really is very selfish and really is not good for the family unit, but I'm fulfilling my desire. And I'm going to give up on that, knowing that it's really something that would contribute to a better family, but I'm going to suffer a little bit, not terribly, something small. And I start with that. That's the first rung. Once I've gotten in the habit of giving up something, even something small, for the better good of the entire family, it becomes contagious. And next you'll do something when it comes to another issue where you'll be willing to be mevater, to give in for the betterment of everyone. And little by little, you'll climb that ladder until you reach the top. Now, you don't reach the top. Could be it's a whole lifelong quest. But as long as you're climbing steadily, consistently, that's what's necessary. More than that, a person can't possibly do.
What does Rabbi see as some of our biggest obstacles to Shalom Bayis?
The lack of tznius, modesty. Modesty doesn't just mean in dress. Modesty means that people are boisterous and they're looking for gratification in areas that are the antithesis of what a Jewish home has to be. And today, unfortunately, it's everywhere, right? It's the billboards that we see. It's the books and magazines that people read. It's social media, right? It's what's on your phone, right? That's more than just a phone. And if people would be happy with what they have within the home and not look outside to get pleasures that are not in consonance with Torah, then they would find more gratification in being part of the family and in contributing to the family, and they'd feel that they benefit from having a stronger family unit. I think that's probably today the greatest obstacle to Shalom Bayis. People don't appreciate the inner things. They don't appreciate what goes on within the walls of the home, and they're looking for their pleasure outside of those walls, and in many, many different ways. Some of them completely prohibited, some of them not completely prohibited, but why can't you be happy with what you have within your home? That's also called modesty.
I have a lot of women who say, Leah, I got off this social media. I did this and I'm growing and I'm working on it. It's very, very hard because my husband doesn't see the value in it. So what's the point of me saying, okay, dinner time, I'm not going to use my phone if my husband's on his? So does Rav have any advice for when we're talking women, if a woman, is leading spiritually in this way or feeling that she understands it in a deep way and her husband's addicted and swiping and doing whatever, on his phone all the time and texting and, what can a woman do to sort of bring the home into his center focus rather than outside?
Let me tell you what the rabbis tell us. There's a medrash that says the following. There were a tzaddik and a tzidkonis two righteous people, a husband and wife, were married. For whatever reason, they got divorced. And the righteous woman married a wicked man. And the righteous man married a wicked woman. In the end, the righteous woman turned her husband into a righteous man. And in the end, the wicked woman turned her righteous husband into a wicked man.
Yikes.
Says the Medrash, in case you didn't get the message, Mikan, from here we learn, Shahakol Toli Ba'isha. Everything depends on the woman. Women have a tremendous power of persuasion, to the point where the Maharsha explains the Gemara that you're all familiar with, that when God came to give the Torah, he first spoke to the women softly, and then he spoke to the men not so softly. Says the Maharsha, he didn't speak, or he didn't tell Moshe to speak to the women first one way, and then to speak to the men a different way. He didn't speak twice. God instructed Moshe to speak once in one way. Says the Maharsha, God instructed Moshe to speak softly to the women and to convince them to want to accept the Torah. And then every woman will go and she will convince her husband and her children, not in such a soft way, to also accept the Torah. All you have to do is get the woman on your side, and she has a power of persuasion, tremendous power. The parsha of Korach, there were two women involved there. Korach's wife instigated the whole argument that led to her husband's destruction, and On Ben Pelish's wife saved her husband. Women have a tremendous power of persuasion. So therefore, a woman should not sell herself short. And she may not be able to change her husband overnight, but she can say, look, this meal only, right? I put a lot of effort into preparing it. All the children are home. They're in a good mood. Could we just this meal put the phones away and concentrate on having a nice one-time family meal? Find the ideal situation. And one time, right, the phones are not there. The husband agrees. It's only a one-time thing, out of the ordinary. And then she can always say, you know, that meal was really, really enjoyable. Maybe we could do it again sometime, and have now something to point to that we had a really enjoyable family meal without the phone. Maybe we could do it again. Maybe we should do this once a month, and then maybe once a week, and then maybe once every day. And that is the way the woman's power of persuasion can change a family slowly but surely.
Oh, it's beautiful. Wow. Wow, just clocking what kinds of things are possible, you know, it's very empowering. What is one action a woman can do today to bring more Shalom Bayis into her home?
A woman has to work not just on giving up, again, what's good for her, for the benefit of the entire family. I think women are more prone to be able to do that. Jewish women are known to be martyrs, and that everything is for their family, even when it's not necessarily good for them, and that's not also so great either, right? The woman has to be able to enable her husband and children to be givers, not just takers. She can't be the one to always give. She has to sometimes take for the sake of giving them the opportunity to be givers too. But
can you give us an example of that? That's fantastic. Yeah, okay.
You're sitting at the table, a husband, a wife, and a little child, and they bring to the table enough food for an army. And what does the wife say? No, give it to my husband and my child. Right? I don't need it. What do you mean you don't need it? If you eat, there's enough for an army. Right? Your children and your husband are not going to suffer if you don't give up your portion. But that's the nature of a Jewish woman, to be a martyr. So sometimes if you only want to give and never want to take, then you are demeaning the other people in the relationship because you're making them always takers and not givers. So sometimes you have to take, not because you want for yourself, but because you want to give them the opportunity to be givers. It gives them a good feeling. It makes them feel worthwhile. So a woman, in order to be a good contributor to Shalom Bayis, has to know when to give in and when to take. And when you can balance those two things, then you can engender more Shalom Bayis.
So I'm thinking of action steps for women, like actions that, maybe, a rabbi can give a bunch of examples for women that they can take on today, because we're working in this geula to be able to not just have today I was inspired today, but what brings it forward is adding actions into our daily life that makes.
Let me read to you what the Rambam says a good wife and mother is. I'm going to read you also what it says a good husband, so you don't take this. It's a balance between the two. But for the woman, it says, the rabbis commanded a woman, she should honor and respect her husband more than necessary. I like to explain that. What's the more than, how much is necessary and how much is more than necessary? Sometimes husbands deserve honor, respect, and the wife recognizes those areas that her husband really is somebody who deserves respect and honor, but people on the outside world don't recognize that. They don't give him the respect and honor he deserves, that she knows he deserves. Sometimes it's the opposite. Husbands get a lot of respect and honor on the outside, but she knows personally he doesn't deserve all of that honor and respect. He's a different person in the house. A woman should give her husband respect more than enough, meaning whatever is the more, what he gets on the outside or what he deserves on the inside, that's how she should respect him. That's one thing. The yellow aleha mora, she should stand in awe of him. She should look up to him. She should do what he likes and not do what he doesn't like, and she should look up to him like a prince, and not do things that she knows that he doesn't like. Now that is with a tremendous amount of it's not across the board. Chazal say that a man zocha nasis lo ke'ezer. If he merits it, his wife is a helpmate. Lo zocha, if he doesn't merit it, his wife is against him. That doesn't mean that a woman is against her husband. What it means is when he deserves it and he's doing the right thing, she's right there by his side to help him, to look up to him, to respect him, to encourage him. When he's doing the wrong thing, and unfortunately there are husbands who do the wrong things, sometimes, all the time, or whatever. If it's too much all the time and too much wrong things, then maybe she should look to end that marriage. But if it becomes extreme, but in any case, everybody, husbands and wives, don't do everything right all the time. A woman, then, her role is to oppose him in order that he does what's right. She's not opposing the good things he's doing, but she's supposed to oppose the bad things he's doing in a positive way, to encourage him to do things that are proper and not things that are improper. So that's what the Rambam says. A woman has to relate to her husband. And what does it say? A husband has to relate to his wife. A person has to honor his wife more than he honors himself. The way I like to understand that is that there are things that women find very important, aesthetics, right? I know, my wife comes to me and says, I think we have to paint the living room. What color do you think we should paint it? She comes out with 100 different swatches of different colors of yellow or green or whatever. And to me, I can't see the difference between them. And it doesn't really make a difference to me if the walls are yellow, green, blue, as long as they're there, right? So I can't say, who cares? No, I have to know that if this is important to my wife, then honoring her means what's important to her should be important to me. So that's more than I honor myself, because these things don't mean anything to me, but it means something to her. And if she means something and she's important, then what she considers important should be important to me too. The Ohavo Kigufa, he has to love her like he loves himself. If he has the means, he has to provide for her monetarily, right, according to his means, and honor her in that way. And he should not be stingy when it comes to money, and he should give her independence when it comes to spending money or whatever. She shouldn't be dependent on him for every penny. He shouldn't intimidate her. He has to speak calmly to her. He shouldn't be a person who's constantly depressed. And not a person who's constantly angry. Because if you're depressed and you're angry, that's what you spread in the home. And the home becomes a depressing place and a place that's agitated. So that's the responsibility of a husband to a wife, and that's the responsibility to a wife to a husband. And if we would fulfill these two things, there'd be no Shalom Bayis problems.
So if I could ask, I have time for a last question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay, yeah. And it's important, first of all, to learn the details of all of this, and to have a goal that I would like to implement this on at some point, and I'm working towards it, rung after rung, little thing by little thing, to reach these goals.
Totally get it. The question I get, and we have time for just one last question, and this is a heavy duty one, if that's okay, which is that I have a lot of women who say, I've working so hard on doing my part of it, being the best wife I can. The obligations you just outlined that the Rambam said for the man to do, I don't see him working on any of them, Leah. What do you want me to do? I'm done. I'm like, I keep putting forth, how does a woman strengthen her husband in having the desire to be on a ladder himself to help the relationship?
You're basically dealing with people who are Torah observant. So a woman has to say, there are all kinds of mitzvahs, and there's mitzvah Shabbos and kashrus, and I know that you are very careful, right, in eating only what's kosher and getting the right hashgachos, and I know that Shabbos you're very careful, right? This is also an area of halacha. Wouldn't it be a good idea if we sat down and learned what these halachas were, right? Or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, maybe to find a shiur, whether it's online or it's in person, to learn these halachos, because they're just as important as the other halachos. Every part of the Torah is important. And maybe you need to learn these things, and the reason you're not doing them is because you're not aware. And after you learn them, then maybe the reason you're not doing it is because it's hard for you, because you need to improve your character. So maybe you have to go and get a Rav who can guide you, and then we can really have a very, very happy and fortunate relationship. So maybe she can encourage her husband to learn these halachos and to use the fulcrum of saying that you're a person I know who's concerned about doing mitzvahs properly. This is another area where mitzvahs apply just as much as the other things.
Yeah, kol hakavod. Wow, that's good. If we can do that, because the women who are watching and women who are dedicated to growing in their own Shalom Bayis, that is sometimes a stumbling block for them. And a lot of times, Rabbi, what I say is that if a woman is being a receiver, the husband will, the husband will be more of a giver. So that, but this,
Right.
if she can encourage him in exactly the way you're saying, I think that could go. That's a really good extra tool for her to have. It's very good. Okay, any last advice on Shalom Bayis before we have to end?
No, just that people should not give up if they think that all the things that we've said are really not them, though they're like ideals that they would love to have Shalom Bayis like that, but the reality is different. Never give up, work at it slowly. And besides the fact, my experience is as people get older, they mellow and they're more prone to be able to give in and to change and to act in a more responsible way.
Thank you, Rabbi Leff. This has been outstanding. We have a lot to think about, a lot to work on. Thank you so much for being with us today. Very appreciate it. So the homework for today is take one little thing that you're going to work on. I don't care anything you heard today, one of those things as small as you can, and do it this week. One little action that is going to create your new reality. This is Leah Richeimer with the Ladies Talk Show. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.